live now on YouTube and also on TikTok. Hello, everyone. This is Marty behind the camera and in front of the camera.
I am Jerome.
He's
Hello, everyone.
Jerome. For those that might be new to our channel, Jerome is a bonsai artist, a professional, and also the founder of the Bonsai Supply. So today we wanted to go live to talk about spring bonsai care because that's where we are right now. It's spring, things are growing, things are coming back, and it's one of our favorite seasons. So we want to make sure you all are ready to take care of your trees during the spring. And Jerome is going to touch about everything, go things that you need to be aware of for this season. So, and we have some nice trees over here as well. So I can't wait for you to introduce them a little bit to these trees. And please let us know in the comments where you are tuning in from. I'll be reading your questions and your comments to Jerome, and we'd love to say hello to you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday once again. So, welcome to today's live. So what I brought here with me today are three different trees that we're going to talk about, and they're three very different type of trees. So I have a tempered deciduous tree here with me, this big tree here that's hard to miss. Now this is a deciduous tree, which means it will lose all of its leaves in the fall and then regrow them in the spring. So this is one of the trees that I brought. Another one that I brought is a conifer, which is this little guy right here. Conifers are trees such as junipers and pines. And then last but not least, I also brought a tropical tree with me that flowers. So this is a desert rose. It's a little sumo desert rose that I have brought here today. So all three of these have a little bit of a different care, especially in the spring, especially when we talk about the repotting timing, the aftercare of the repotting, as well as what type of fertilizer are we going to use. Now, in terms of soil, as always, we just use our all-purpose bonsai soil mixture. But once we go into the fertilizing, it can vary a little bit per species. But we're going to get into that a little bit more later. Now, we brought this big guy here today because I wanted to show you guys the update of this tree. Now, you may remember we repotted this tree about 3 weeks ago on a live stream, which was a daunting task because the tree was so big for me to handle alone in this little space. But as you can see, I managed to wrestle it in this pot. And this is all the growth that you see here from 3 weeks ago. So when we repotted this tree, the tree just started to bud, and now it's fully pushed out and it continues to grow. And if you look at like some branches up here, like this branch up here has grown about 6 inches in just 3 weeks. So that's really amazing.
Love it, love it. Yes, this tree is looking so great, and I can't believe it came back so quick as well. So for those that might have seen that video, you also will be amazed like I am of this growth. And if you haven't seen the video, I recommend you to check it out. It's on our YouTube channel and it's one of the latest lives. And it's the hackberry over here.
My hackberry.
Perfect. So I know we're going to be talking about spring care today. So I wanted to ask you, what are the key tasks involved in the spring care for bonsai trees?
The key tasks in spring care for bonsai trees. So I would say the key tasks are obviously to repot your trees. And temper trees such as these two guys, deciduous trees and conifers, we repot them at bud break. So when the deciduous trees, they're going to be naked in the spring, right? And then you see little buds starting to push out. That's a good indicator that we can go ahead and repot this tree. Now on a juniper, you can see all of this light green new growth starting to pop up. Great indicator to go ahead and repot. So once we have repotted the tree, the next task that we want to do in the spring is, of course, fertilize, followed by immediate insect care. Because when we have all of these tender shoots out and the temperatures are starting to warm up, of course, the insects start to come out and they start to attack all of this beautiful fresh growth on our trees. So we have to kind of stay ahead of that and protect our trees before the insects get to it. And so I would say those are the three major bonsai tasks in the spring.
All right. So you said, of course, potting,
Repotting, yep,
repotting, fertilizing, um,
and insect care.
and insect care.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I know you have different type of trees right now. We have the hackberry, which is a deciduous. We have the juniper over here, which is a conifer, and we also have a tropical over here, which is a desert rose. So what is, I know, so depending on your tree, you'll know what it needs to be done this season, right? So this season is mainly, or where the most gets work is the deciduous one, right?
Deciduous and conifers, so all temperate trees. So think anything that's not tropical. That
Anything that is not
anything that's not
tropical
so
shines in the
tropical.
spring.
Watch this. Tropicals goes away. So we're only going to talk about the temperate trees, right? That's that's a time. That's a busy time in the spring. Repotting, fertilizing, spraying for insect care. But then in the spring, we don't really do any trimming right away. I mean, look at this tree right here. It's starting to get a little bit out of shape. It's starting to look like a hedge almost, or like a bush. And that is on purpose because you want the first flush of growth in the spring to fully push out and harden. Now, what does hardening mean? Hardening means that all of these green shoots here that are tender will turn into wood. Once they have turned into wood, the tree kind of pauses for a minute. And when I mean a minute, maybe a week or so. And that's a great time to come in here with my scissors and trim the tree back into proportion, and kind of shape it back. And then the second flush of growth comes. And again, I'm going to let the tree overgrow like this until the new shoots once again harden off. And then I can trim it back again. Now, the same thing with conifers such as the juniper that I have here with me. In the spring, on such a small tree, I want to let the new growth fully push out, harden, before I come in here and do any type of work and set it up for the next flush. Now, in
Okay.
terms of tropical trees, in the spring, we just want to keep them warm. Keep them above 50 degrees Fahrenheit at all costs, all tropical trees. Temperate trees, it's so important that when you repot them in the spring, that you keep them above 40 degrees Fahrenheit and out of wind. So out of wind, what does that really mean, right? So when I repot this tree, for instance, I usually set it on the floor next to, like, where we live, we have walls outside, like brick walls. So I set it on the floor next to the brick wall so that no direct wind can actually hit the tree. Now, the reason why we say keep it out of the wind is because the tree is just getting used to being repotted, right? It goes through a little bit of a stress and it has all of these new tender shoots. Now, when the wind comes, it actually dehydrates these new shoots right here, and it could kill off all of this new growth. So if you've ever repotted a tree in the spring and it declined right away, that's usually because you left it out in the wind.
Yeah.
Mystery solved.
Yeah, so I know. Okay, so let's take some time in the one of the first tasks, which
Mhm.
is repotting. And since you were mentioning this will be specifically for deciduous and conifers, so what are indicators that the tree is ready to be repotted? Because obviously conifers, they keep their leaves. However, deciduous, they lose their leaves in the winter time.
Mhm.
So in the spring, what do they have to be aware in order to repot?
Right. I covered that a little bit, but the indicators on both trees are basically new growth. So once you see the naked tree right here, this tree will be completely leafless. And then once you see little green shoots popping up all over the tree, that's an indicator that you can go ahead and repot this tree. So green
I
shoots here.
Okay, great. No, I ask you this because on TikTok,
Mhm.
someone was
No,
asking
it's a great
about.
question.
No, no. So someone was asking about a Japanese maple, like if
Mhm.
it's a good time to repot it. So if you can
Very good
explain a little
question.
more
Okay,
about that.
so very good question, and I'll gladly repeat it again. No problem at all. So this applies to all deciduous trees. So anything that goes dormant loses its leaves over the winter time, and in the spring, once the new buds start to push, that's the indicator. Go ahead and repot. Now, when your tree looks like this, right, it has fully pushed out. Now that is typically too late to repot. Now you can still get away with repotting it. Like if, let's say I was very, very busy this spring, right? Mari kept me super busy this spring and I wasn't able to repot this tree. Finally, Mari gives me some room to breathe and I have some time to repot this tree now, and it is at this stage. Now, can I go ahead and repot this tree or not? Now, the answer is yes, I can, but it's not something that I want to do repeatedly at this stage. So if I do it this time, but then in 2 years or in a year when I repot it again, I want to make sure that I'm right on the mark as soon as the leaves start to push out.
So, okay, so it's not the best case scenario.
Mhm.
However, so you'll do it like a regular repotting, or would it be a sleep potting? What would
So
it be?
that's a very good question. At this stage, I would probably treat this more as a slip potting. I could probably go a little bit further than a slip potting, but I wouldn't bale root it at this point. So a slip potting is essentially where you remove the tree from its current container without disturbing the root ball. So meaning that you do not want to trim the root ball at all. You just want to basically take it out of this pot and put it into a larger pot. So think of this tree right here, right? I will cut the wire from the top, from the bottom, take my root sickle and carefully carve around the edges, lift it out, and then I will put this tree into probably a pot. Can you see this pot still? A little more inside?
Here
Okay.
for TikTok.
Here you
It's
go. How's
vertical.
this?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
good.
So you see how this pot is a lot smaller than this one? So I could pop it out of this pot, pop it into this pot, which is much larger, which means I don't have to disturb the roots, fill it in with good bonsai soil, and then in a year, next spring, when I have the timing just right, that's when I will go ahead and do what I need to do in terms of like bale rooting or cutting the root ball back big time. So it's always good to be on the safe side. So for instance, this tree right here, this hackberry, I've been working on it now for about 4 years, I want to say. So the reason why I'm telling you this, that I've been working on this tree for 4 years, is because 4 years is a lot of time, especially in human years. So do I want to risk this tree and do something off season just to do it? And then like risk it passing away? And then I've lost 4 years plus $100. Well, that was the cost of the tree when I bought it. Of course, my time is a lot more valuable, right? Wire on, wire off, fertilizing, soil. So I want to make sure I do this at the right time. So since I'm a little bit more experienced, I would still repot it at this time and just work the outer layer of the root ball, maybe like a half an inch down, and put it back in the pot. But if you are newer into bonsai and you're like, man, I'm not sure, take it out, put it into a bigger pot, fill it in with fresh bonsai soil, and that's the safest possible way. And then do it the proper way the next time around.
All right. Love it. And I wanted to say hello really quick to Gering, viewing from Maryland today. Hello, hello, Gering. And Michael from the OG Yellow Pod Club secretary.
Yes, welcome, welcome, brother.
Hey, Michael. Welcome, guys, in. And yeah, so you are right on time. This is, we're going to talk about spring care. Jerome was touching about repotting and saying how that varies with deciduous, conifers, and tropicals, and what you have to be aware of in order to know it's time to repot. Also, hello on TikTok from Austin. Thank you guys for being here. And all right, so now we know what is the right time to do that.
Mhm.
Now let's talk a little bit about bonsai soil, like what type of soil they need to be
Okay.
using in order to have a successful repotting season.
Yeah, of course. So the bonsai soil that we use for all of our bonsai tree, and we also produce it here in Texas, so it is locally produced, is the all-purpose bonsai soil mixture. So all the aggregates are locally sourced. It's made out of 4 ingredients, pumice, lava rock, pine bark, and calcined clay. Now, this is the soil that you see right here. And if you are new to bonsai and you're like, what is he talking about? That's not soil, that's gravel. Um, it's not gravel. It is actual. So it's also not really a soil, but we call it a soil because that's what we use for bonsai. Now, the reason why we use this type of soil mixture is because we want aeration, air to be able to enter into the pot and aerate the roots because that creates a lot of root growth. Now, furthermore, we have another aggregate, which is the lava rock, which helps with the water drainage. So the water doesn't stay in here for too long, which allows you to water on a daily basis. But what is actually one of the most important things about this soil is that when you water, the water percolates evenly and waters the root ball evenly. That is such an important job of a soil. Now, furthermore, also having it dry out evenly is probably even more important than having the root ball being watered, equally. But if you use regular potting soil, you would never be able to achieve that the soil would dry out everywhere evenly. And that is so important for the tree health, root health, but also for us to train this tree in such a small bonsai container. Now, you might notice that there's only one soil up here. And that is because we've made it extremely easy for you guys. We created one soil that you can use for any type of tree under the sun. So whatever you grow, whatever type of tree you have, tropical trees, conifers, deciduous tree, flowering trees, fruiting trees, whatever you have, you can use this soil. And we are living proof that you can actually use this soil for all of your tree species. And that is because we actually grew bonsai trees in South Florida, tropical trees, for about 12 years. And then we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where we grow temper trees for an additional 4 years. And now we're out here in Texas where we can grow both type of trees, tropicals and temper trees. And look at them, don't they look healthy? And in last week's repot, or in the last repot, when we repotted this tree, you were able to see how much healthy roots was in this pot when we repotted it. So this is why we use this type of bonsai soil.
Yes, what we use for all of our trees.
Mhm.
And on TikTok, we're able to link the product so you guys can check it out. And I know on the TikTok shop, there is a sale going on right now. So we
Oh
hope
wow.
you take advantage of that if you don't have bonsai soil yet. So you get ready for the season.
Now, if you're not on TikTok, you can also get the soil on our website, thebonsaisupply.com. You can also pick it up at your nearest Home Depot store, or if they don't have it, you can order it to that store or order it to your home. The same goes for Lowe's and Amazon. We are a number one seller there, so you'll find us very easily. And yeah, so you can
Amazing.
pick it up anywhere, basically.
Yeah, your choice.
Your choice.
We have
Whatever credit
many
card you
outlets.
have.
So yeah, and I'm going to go. That brings me to the next question from Michael, which is: would you use your organic fertilizer on trees with the all-purpose soil?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So, the organic fertilizer. I mean, I guess we can talk about fertilizer
Let's talk
now, right?
about
Let's talk
fertilizer,
about
which is the
fertilizer.
next
Let's do it.
steps.
Let's do it. Okay. So let's talk about the organic fertilizer, which is this one right here. I'm going to bring it over here. So this is our 835, our organic fertilizer, and this fertilizer was specifically created for conifer trees. So pines, junipers, anything that has needles. So a larch. What else can we think of? Anything literally that has needles and that's a conifer, you would want to use organic fertilizer. Reason being is because conifers do not respond very well to chemical fertilizers because the needles will get very long and leggy. And on conifers, we kind of want to work on shrinking down these needles to keep them nice and compact. So that's why we want to use a slow feeding organic fertilizer. Now, but if you, however, say, I only want to use organic in my backyard, you can use this for all of your trees. It's not going to harm them. It's perfectly fine to use this on any of your trees, but it was specifically created for conifers in mind, to keep that growth compact and not have it explode like that. Now, on the other hand, however, let me see if I can reach it. Okay, here you go. On the other hand, we have our all-purpose fertilizer, which this fertilizer is a chemical fertilizer, and this we recommend to use for anything else that is not a conifer. And you can very easily distinguish if you have a conifer or not. Does it look like this, or does it actually have leaves? So if it has leaves like here or here, you use this all-purpose bonsai fertilizer. You want to have explosive growth. You want to have something that really gets a tree up and moving. I mean, look at this. 6 inches of growth in just under 3 weeks. That's incredible. That's what you want. I want to have a lot of growth on my trees throughout the year so that I can, progress them rather quickly. Because I want to have my trees grow fast. I want them to develop fast, right? I'm not a young man anymore, so I need to have them develop faster. And that's why I use our all-purpose bonsai fertilizer for that. And yeah, you can use them totally in our soil. There's no harm by doing so. What I would recommend actually, and this is something that I have started doing recently myself, is I would use fertilizer baskets. You can see them over here. Let me see if I can grab a few. Okay. So these fertilizer baskets are such a game changer because the little basket measures exactly 1 teaspoon. And so on the side of the fertilizer, it actually has the directions on how to apply, how much to apply. And so we always say measure the length of the pot and use 1 teaspoon for every 4 inches in pot length. Okay, so what that means is like we measure this pot, and I know, let me see, do I even have my, oh, I don't have one with me. Okay, so anyways, you would measure the length of your pot, and let's say you have an 8-inch pot, you would use 2 of these baskets, fill them up with fertilizer. I'm going to show you like this, very easy. So you just fill them, push in the little basket like this, fill it up to the rim with fertilizer, close the little lid, and then you just stick it in here into the soil. Boom.
Is there a placement that they need to be targeting it?
That's a great question. Let me finish on this. So you push it into the soil, and then you just water these baskets, and then next month when you fertilize again, you just take that basket, open the lid, dump out the old fertilizer, fill it with fresh fertilizer, and go ahead again. So on where to place it on your tree, it doesn't really matter. If I would say if the pot is like this, kind of like this small for this tree, it's kind of like a smallish type pot, I would place these fertilizer baskets closer out to the rim. Or like you see how this pot right here doesn't have a lot of space. So here I would probably place them maybe almost to the rim. The same here. But if you have a shallow pot and you have a lot of space, you can either place them closer to the trunk or further away. The placement doesn't really matter because once the fertilizer starts releasing and you have these baskets evenly in the pot distributed, the fertilizer will go equally down into the soil. So you're perfectly fine.
Yeah, and for those asking in the comments, we are on Amazon. This is the Bonsai Supply Bonsai Soil and Bonsai Supply Bonsai Fertilizer and all-purpose organic. You can find us, yes, you can find us on Amazon as well. And also with the fertilizer baskets, along with, you can find us as well in our website, bonsaisupply.com, like Jerome was saying earlier. And this is something that we do, coming back to fertilizing and wrapping it up, we do this once a month for
once a month
asking how
and
often.
So we do this throughout the entire year, so I never stop fertilizing. Some people like to stop fertilizing in the fall. I still continue to fertilize into the fall, into the winter. We don't get really harsh winters here, they're very mild, so I continue to fertilize. The fertilizer keeps releasing, the tree can still absorb it. The roots still work in the winter time, so they still grow very slow though, but they still absorb that nutrient throughout those nutrients throughout the winter time, store them, and then next spring they have explosive growth. So that's why you can fertilize year round. Now, I also wanted to say that if you want to get the fertilizer or the soil or any of our other products, you can simply go to Home Depot or Amazon and just type in bonsai soil, and we're the first ones that will pop up, or
Bonsai Supply,
fertilizer.
Bonsai Soil.
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, we have gone through repotting, fertilizing,
Hmm.
those the main two tasks. Along with now, let's go watering. Watering.
Watering. Okay. So as soon as we repot the trees, you want to go ahead and water your trees immediately. So go ahead and repot them, work out the air pockets, put the trees outside, obviously, where they are going to be recovering, and then thoroughly water them. So I like to go ahead and water my trees maybe. So I have a soft shower setting on my watering wand, and I go back and forth to evenly water the soil, and I water for probably about a minute. So I water quite a long time because I want to make sure that the tree gets completely soaked. Then I wait about a minute, and then I go ahead and I water again. Now I only do this the very first time just to really water in the soil, and then moving forward, I just water every single day moving forward in the morning. Now, of course, if you grow your trees indoors, you can just move the top layer of the soil a little bit, and if it's still dark underneath, you can see the soil actually turns a darker color if it's wet, and it's a little lighter color when it's dry. So if you move the top layer of the soil, maybe like half an inch or so, and it is dark there, then you don't have to water it. You just leave it alone. But outdoors, I always water because you have wind, you have heat, you have the the climate changes a lot. So therefore, always water your trees during the growing season every single morning.
All right. And taking a step back a little bit, fertilizing, I mean, repotting and
Mhm.
then fertilizing. So, how quick after repotting would you fertilize?
That's a very good question. So as you can see, this tree was repotted 3 weeks ago exactly. Once the new growth was out, maybe like a half an inch, so about 2 weeks later, maybe even less, maybe 8, 9 days, something like that, I already gave it its first fertilizing. I kind of let the tree respond first, push out growth, and then I apply the fertilizer. It takes a couple days for the fertilizer to get activated and start to release into the soil. So you can go ahead. You could also do it immediately. You could also add some fertilizer into the soil if you wanted to. These fertilizers definitely do not hurt your trees or burn the roots, as some people like to call it. This fertilizer does not do that, so you are safe to wait, or you can fertilize right away.
All right, wonderful. So, okay, we have covered repotting,
Mhm.
fertilizing, watering, and what about placement?
Okay.
Like where they should be putting their trees during the spring.
Okay, great question. So, like I said at the beginning, once you repot them, keep them above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperatures, that is crucial, and keep them out of direct wind. You want to give them full sun, but keep them away from the wind. Now, that can be challenging. Like I said, I have a wall that keeps all the wind out of my backyard. I'm just lucky that that wall is positioned that it kind of blocks all of the wind. But whatever you have to do, like if you have a fence or you have like a cold frame maybe, or a greenhouse, or maybe you have to build something, or maybe put up some bushes to kind of block the wind a little bit. And so you keep them there until the temperatures are steady and the wind kind of dies down. You know, that Arctic wind that comes in the spring, until that dies down, keep those trees in those places. But like right now, like we are in April now, right? So I actually put this tree back up where it usually is, out in full sun, on its pillar, on its post, probably a week ago. So I waited 2 weeks of it getting acclimated on the ground, protected from the wind. And then once it has this much foliage, you're safe to put it out into wherever you want to place it. It's just for the first week or so to protect it.
All right. And there's a great question from TikTok. I'm thinking of air layering my Japanese maple. Is spring a good time to try to air layer a branch?
Absolutely. So spring is actually the best time to air layer. You would want to wait until the first growth has completely turned to wood. You see how this leaf out here is still kind of greenish? Wait until that turns to wood, and then go ahead and do your air layering.
Okay, wonderful. And
Mhm.
what are other techniques or things that people can try during the spring?
So air layering was something that I was going to touch on. You could start to graft. That's another thing that you could do. So
What is grafting?
Um, so let's say, for instance, I want to do a thread graft, right? So I want to have a branch down here on the trunk somewhere. Well, I don't have one there, but I would really like one. So what I could do is right before the tree starts to wake up, like once I see the buds starting to just push, that's when I would take a drill and drill a hole through the trunk and then feed a branch from somewhere up here, a long branch, through the trunk. It comes out on the other side. I would attach it. I've made a YouTube video where I went into that a little more, in detail. It's kind of hard to explain you everything here, and that's basically a graft. So you graft a branch to a place where you want a branch, but you don't have one right now. That's a great thing to do in the spring, actually. So we have repotting, fertilizing, insecticide. We have air layering, and also grafting. And I would say those are the main things that we do in spring, unless there's one more that I cannot think of right now.
Okay. What about propagating?
Okay,
Can you
that's
propagate?
actually that's actually another one that we could do. Very good question. So yeah, propagating is another one that we could do. Now, on a tree, propagating varies from tree to tree a little bit, but the idea is basically the same. So if I wanted to propagate this tree, I would wait until the new growth hardens, and then I will clip it off because I want to have a hardwood cutting that you then like dip into a rooting hormone and then plant it, and then this cutting that you plant will then grow and then eventually grow into a tree like that if you let it. And so that is propagation.
All right,
On
perfect.
tropical trees, I would probably wait until the summertime. We need a lot more heat for those trees to produce roots. So I would wait for these in the summertime, but here, temperate trees, you can do that in the spring.
All right, and just to clarify, because we have been talking mostly about deciduous and conifers, which are the ones that you can do the most work during this season.
Mhm.
So for tropicals, for those that have tropicals, so we just leave them alone. We just like water them and still fertilize them.
Mhm.
Make sure they don't have insects. We place them outdoors in a good light and out of the wind. Is that what we need to worry about the tropicals? Just like
Correct.
regular
So
care.
just keep them above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, keep them warm, keep them, in light. That's very important. And then once it is steadily above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, you can then move them outside into full sun. And
Okay.
you, like I said, you can continue to fertilize. Like you touched on the insect care, right? Like spray for insects throughout the year, and then you would want to go ahead and repot them in the summertime. Now, what does summertime mean exactly for the tree, right? Per climate, it can be different. What you want to have is that the trees or that the temperatures at night are 70 degrees Fahrenheit plus, so that they are steadily above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when you can go ahead and repot all of your tropical trees.
But we're
And
not talking about summer, so let's go back to spring. So spring with these trees over here.
uh-huh.
Um, what about styling though? Like, is that something you need to do while you repot, or you can do it also later on in the season?
No.
How does styling work?
So the styling, you don't do any styling this time of the year on either. You can style both of all the temperate trees, and when I say temperate trees, think of climate where it gets cold, right? Where there's an actual winter. Like if you're in Florida, you're not included in this temperate conversation. So I'm sorry, but the trees have to go to sleep. It has to get cold. You have to put on a sweater for several months out of the year. That's temperate. Um, what was the question?
How does styling the
Oh, the
tree?
styling. You're right. I was too happy about my joke that I made. Okay, the styling. So don't do anything in the spring in the styling. In the summertime, you can style both of these trees, like all the temper trees. You would remove all of the leaves off of the deciduous trees, apply the wire, trim it back, and That's what you would do in the summertime. Temper trees, I mean conifers, you obviously leave the leaves on because you do not remove these, but you could go ahead and style it in the summertime as well. And then a second styling is usually given to these type of temper trees in the fall again. So summer and fall we style. The rest
Okay,
of
so
the
we don't
year
style
we
the
don't.
trees in the spring. It's just,
No, we could just kind of leave them alone.
which it could be really a temptation because they lost their leaves, so it's like perfect. You can see everything to like wire them.
So in the wintertime, you can go ahead and style your trees like wire them, but the best time to do that would be in the fall as they are going to sleep. Because what you want to do is when you trim branches and you style the branches and you trim the trees back, you want these new cut surfaces to callus over as the tree goes to sleep.
Hmm.
Because if you remove larger branches in the winter time, sap could start to ooze out of these areas and that branch could start to die back. So that's why, like, if you do minor wiring and minor trimming, you can do that in the winter time. But other than that, do it in the summertime and do it in the fall. Those are the best two timings. Like, just aim for those times.
And I see some people freaking out in the comments about that they have been wiring their conifers or their spruces. So what would you recommend to them? It's not that their tree's gonna die,
No, so
right?
the reason why I don't recommend it is because when the tree starts to actively grow and you go in here and you start to wire, you might accidentally knock off these new shoots that are starting to push out. So you just kind of break them off with the wire, and we want to avoid that. And so that's why, like I always say, there's a best time, and then there's an okay time, and then there's a not so okay time. So, so if you styled your conifer now in the spring and you trimmed it, it's not a okay time to do that. The tree will still survive, especially that most of us have younger trees. So you're fine if you have a small younger tree like that you do that too. That's perfectly fine. Nothing is going to happen. But if you have an older tree that's more refined and it's about to go into a show, you do not want to do that to those type of trees because you have finer ramification. It's a whole different animal. But we are mostly talking about trees that everybody has, every practitioner at every level. Like from something this size to this size, and this advanced development, if you will. Like even this is still a beginner tree at this stage. So you are perfectly fine. Just now that you have learned that, I'm not supposed to wire and cut my conifer and my Japanese maple in the spring. Let me wait for the summertime. Jerome said, do it in the summertime, remove the leaves of my Japanese maple, wire it, cut it back, and then place that deciduous tree in the shade until the new leaves have fully pushed out, and then you can push it back out into the sun. Conifers, you just wire a trim, a little trick on the conifers once you're done trimming. Mist it with water, which will prevent browning tips.
All right. And I see a question about our desert rose that we have over here.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much asking if you have seen it bloom yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also was wondering what is our plan to see it bloom
Okay.
this season, because that's the beauty of a spring. We see flowers.
So I can talk about tropical trees now?
Yeah,
Okay.
flowering trees. Let us know what do we
Okay.
do to make them flower.
Actually, you just touched on a very, very good subject, flowering trees, right? So, flowering temper trees and fruiting temper trees, you have a choice. You can either repot them before they flower or after they flower, like a Japanese wisteria, for instance. Once it is one day it is dormant, and the next day you see flower buds all over the place. So would you want to go ahead and repot it then? Not really, because you could disturb all of these blooms. So just let it do its thing. Let it completely flower. Once it's done flowering, go ahead and repot it. The same for like your cherry blossom, or if you have something that produces fruits early in the spring, wait until it's done fruiting, then repot it, you're good to go. But most trees fruit later in the season anyways, so flowering. Okay, cool. Now this tree, my adenium, No, I have not seen it flower yet. And the reason being is because I got this as a gift last winter, actually, from a friend of mine who is in Vietnam. Yes, he's in Vietnam. I always mix up Vietnam and Philippines, but he's in Vietnam. So he sent this little tree to me as a little gift. I have not seen it flower, but I can tell by the petals. So when you take a desert rose and you kind of look on the underside, if the vein is completely white, so you usually get a completely white flower. And right now here it looks like I have a little red or pink at the bottom, and then it turns white. So that tells me that I'm probably going to get a flower that has white and pink. Most likely it's going to be white in the center and pink on the outside. That's what I can tell from the leaves. And usually I'm right on the money with the leaves, unless they have extremely crazy flower colors like purple. Then it doesn't show me that. But usually I think this is going to be a pink and white.
Oh, I
Now,
can't wait.
oh yeah, me
And
neither.
we'll post pictures for you guys for sure.
Now, what could I do to encourage this tree to flower, right? What could I do? So on temper trees, there's nothing that you can do to encourage the flowering. It's a seasonal thing, like a cherry blossom or a plum. It wakes up in the spring. Before the leaves come out, the flowers come out. It puts on a huge flower show. Nothing you can do really. It's just something that the tree does. Tropical trees flower throughout the year repeatedly, right? Like a cherry blossom typically only flowers in the spring, 2 weeks, most amazing time of the year, and then it's over. But like a desert rose, I would probably get flowers on this tree, I would say probably in June when it starts to really heat up. So I need to have a lot of heat, a lot of humidity, and then once it starts to flower, it needs a lot more water. When you have trees that flower and fruit, they need to have a lot more water to sustain all of this new growth, flowers and fruits. And then once this tree is done putting on the flower show, all the flowers will fall off, it will continue to grow, and then flowers will come back. So there is a little trick that I can do to encourage the flowering, but it's not something that I recommend you do on a regular basis. This is only something that I recommend you do when you take it to a show. Like, let's say you are working on taking this tree to an exhibition. Start maybe 2 years before the show. Like, if you always know it's in May, start 2 years before and defoliate this tree about 45 days before the actual day of the show. So year number one, you can see, oh, how many days does it take for it to come back and flower? And this only goes for tropical trees. If you defoliate a tropical tree, they usually come back and flower immediately. So like a bougainvillea takes about 30 days once you fully defoliate it for it to completely flower and have the entire canopy flower. Very evenly beautiful bloom. So try that out so that you can get your day count. Next year, do it again on the same date, the same amount of time before the show, and see if it is consistent. And then for the third year, when you take it to the show, you are right on the money. When you display your tree, it's going to flower and you're going to win best people choice.
People
Guaranteed.
choice, yeah.
People choice is
Yeah.
always flowering, right?
I thought you were gonna say that you should sing to them or play guitar.
No,
because
that's
how
not what
you
I was
do.
going to say. That's not what you have to do. That's something I enjoy doing. I like to play the guitar to my trees. I don't sing. Yeah, you can do that.
Everything helps. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So talking about, you touched about the foliation
Mhm.
so technique, and I see a question on TikTok. Can you elaborate what the foliation does to a maple? What's the reason to set it back to grow leaves again?
Okay, so we are not really setting it back when we defoliate. So think of it this way: when you have a maple tree that grows in the spring, and especially if it's a younger tree and you just let it grow, like the new growth comes out, you start to fertilize, right? You really get the engine going, pushes out a lot of growth. Now all of a sudden, you cannot see into the canopy anymore. It gets very difficult to see in here, and you kind of lose the overall shape and the picture of the tree. That's when you will go ahead and defoliate it in the summertime only. So you will go ahead, I'm not going to do it because the tree is growing, but you basically pull off every single leaf. And it sounds very tedious, but on deciduous trees, you can actually do it extremely fast. Like I could defoliate this entire tree in less than 3 minutes if you timed me. I think I could do it. We're gonna do it one day in a life. We're gonna time me. So you remove all of the leaves, and now that the leaves are gone, now you can see into the tree. You see the trunk, you see all the branch movement. Now you can go in there, remove all of the branches that are not supposed to be there and kind of obstruct the finished image of the tree. You trim it back into shape, and then you keep it out of direct sun because trees can get sunburned. It's actually true. Once new leaves grow, you put them back out into full sun. Now, removing the leaves does more than just for us to see into the canopy. If you look at my fingers, let's pretend these are branches, right? I remove the leaves. Now, when the new growth comes back, I will get a lot new growth in between those branches. So meaning that this is how I get my tree very, very twiggy over the course over several years. So, right, like I defoliated, now I have new growth come in here, right? Because the tree pushes new growth right at the base of all of the new branches. And now instead of 4 branches, now I have 8 branches. And then next year I'm going to do the same, right? And then I'm going to have 16 branches, 30 branches, 50 branches. You just keep multiplying, multiplying, multiplying. This is exactly how you can get a very dense canopy. So it is for us to be able to see into the tree, style it, work it. It is also for the tree to push back more growth where we want it, right? Closer to the inside of the tree. And thirdly, and last of all, it gives us more even growth. Look at this tree right now. It is a little more like on this side, I get a little more growth than on this side. On the top here, it is very vigorous because it's closer to the sun. Once I defoliate it in the summer and it comes back, I will have more even growth throughout the entire canopy. So it redistributes the energy throughout the tree more evenly.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to touch, since we have the tree here and the tree's looking a little wild, and I
Mm-hmm.
know when the tree starts growing so much, a lot of us want to trim it right
Oh
away. They
man.
want like, let me shave this back. So I wanted to highlight that this tree, like we're showing it like that because that's the way we want them. So during the
Yes.
spring, what is your advice for them? Like, is to let it grow, not to touch it? Like, what is the advice during the spring for the
Let it
deciduous?
grow and don't touch it. Now, you should typically only touch your trees maybe 3 times out of the year. That's really it. In the spring, you touch it to repot it, right? And then in the summer, you would touch it again to defoliate it, style it, wire it. And then in the fall, you would do it again. So maybe 3 times. In the meantime, bonsai trees have to look out of shape. There's just something that they have to do. They have to look out of shape. They have to look a little bit, like a bush. And that is so that they can grow strength. So, in order for them to gain more strength, they have to have a lot of foliar mass. And if you constantly, once it looks like this and you come in and you trim it back, you're actually shocking the tree. You're telling it not to grow. And the tree gets a little bit confused. So let it completely overgrow and then trim it back into shape. That's perfectly fine. Like I said, maybe in another 2 to 3 weeks, I will go ahead and trim it back into shape and then I will let it grow again. And then trim it back again. Once it's about like maybe this much overgrown, maybe like 10 inches, then I go back and trim it again. And then in the summer, I touch it and actually do physical work to it. So you can trim it several times, but actually physically touching and doing work on a tree maybe 3 times a year. And that's even a lot. The older the trees get, the less we actually touch them.
All right, perfect. So we have
Yeah.
talked about so much today. I want to summarize the
Okay.
most important things. So, so yeah, I guess I mean I'm gonna say some, and if I'm missing something, you let me know. But
Okay. Hit
me
it.
as a listener, these are my biggest takes, which is first, spring is the season where I only touch deciduous and conifers. And when I said touch, I meant repotting them and doing air layers. What way their layers are also for conifers or just deciduous?
Yes.
Okay, so doing air layers and propagating in that
And
good stuff.
grafting.
Grafting, so
Grafting.
all those good
Mhm.
techniques with deciduous and conifers. Then with my tropicals, as well as the deciduous and the conifers, I'm going to fertilize once a month. I'm going to water my trees as needed, and I'm going to place them in a good light, away from the wind and the temperatures that they should be in.
Mhm.
So, other than that, I don't touch them to style them either. None of them. And I let them grow and make them wild, so I don't touch them until maybe the summer. Is
Well,
that a summary
you
or am I
actually
missing?
listened to me for the first time. That's
Just wanted to wrap
wow.
it up for those that might have joined later.
Okay,
So
no,
those are
that's a
the
spot
main things
on.
you need to know.
Now,
And make sure you use good bonsai soil and
mhm,
good fertilizer, like the Bonsai Supply bonsai soil and the Bonsai Supply bonsai fertilizer. If you are watching on TikTok, you'll see them linking the products. And for those on YouTube, you can find us on Amazon and Home Depot, in Lowe's, Canada and the US, and also in the bonsai-supply.com, which is
perfect,
our website.
perfect. I mean, you've summarized it up beautifully. And if you are a newcomer in bonsai and you've heard all of this and you're like, oh my God, this is way too complicated. I don't know where to start. Don't overthink it. Tropical trees are repotted in the summertime. Everything else is repotted in the spring. Everything is in the summertime. Let's just stay right there. You know, work on all of your trees in the summertime. Trim them, wire them, and leave it there. Once you get that, once you keep your trees alive for several years, and you're like, wow, every summer I work it, and then this happens, why it comes back. In the spring, I repot my temperate trees. In the summertime, I repot my tropical trees. I use this bonsai soil mixture for everything, and I use organic fertilizer for conifers, this for everything else. Keep it there, keep it simple, don't overthink it. Don't think, what should I do in the wintertime? Do nothing.
All right. So we hope
Yes.
you didn't get overwhelmed with all of this information. However, this live is going to be posted on our YouTube channel. We are the Bonsai Supply. So you can find the replay of this recording, and you can always write in the comments if you have more questions about spring. So we wish you a great spring season, and we're going to be sharing some cool techniques that you can try there in the spring and have fun during this season. Season bloomings, hopefully, as well.
You got it.
All
Thank you
right,
guys so much.
guys.
See you guys next time.
See you the next one.